I'm calling our meeting to order. Let us first stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Ms. Kim, may we please have roll call?
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez.
Here.
Vice Chairman Taylor.
Here.
Member Beckles.
Here.
Member Van Deven. Here. Member Wheelis.
Here.
Okay. I want to read the notice to everyone. All persons who anticipate speaking on any public hearing item must first fill out an oath card to be heard on that agenda item and sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located on the table near the entrance to the council chamber or may be obtained from the recording secretary. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the procedures adopted in Resolution 24-1997. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first. Those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make public comment on the item will speak third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. A representative for either side, for or against, may cross-examine a witness. Anyone who speaks is considered a witness. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents that you desire for our board to consider, they must be submitted into evidence and will be retained by the city. You will submit those exhibits at the end of our table here to our recording secretary. All right, so please be sure to fill out an oath card if that applies to you. All right, staff, have our items been properly advertised?
Yes.
All right. And to our members, have any of the board members visited any of the sites or spoken, well, the issue that we're dealing with today, or spoken with any members of the public regarding that agenda item?
No.
No, across the board, me as well. We have no consent agenda. We have no old business, so we'll move right to new business on variance 3-2023 at 2584 Indian Hill Court, and I turn it over to staff.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Oh, minutes. I forgot the minutes. Did you all look at the minutes? I think they are on our PDF page 3 and 4 starts off. And when you all get a chance to review, I will take a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second. Roll call, please. Oh, I can say all in favor, actually, right, Kim? Yes. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes, across the board. Okay, staff?
Hi. Today we're hearing variance number 3-2023. The owner, Inaki Galach Amiano, has submitted a variance request to the Land Development Regulations Section 30-182 height and location requirements to allow for a 7-foot, 4-inch tall fence for a property in a single-family medium-density zoning district located at 2584 Indian Hill Court here in Titusville, Florida. And I will briefly go over the staff report with you all. First, I will let you know that the powers of the BAA in Section 34-226 states the board shall grant a variance request when, in the opinion of the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, owing to special conditions, the literal enforcement of such ordinance or regulation would do manifest injustice to or impose an unnecessary hardship upon the applicant. In order to authorize any variance to the provisions of such ordinance, the board must consider the following criteria. Special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or building in the same zoning. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Granting the variance requested will not confer upon the applicant any special privileges that is denied by the ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. The literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the ordinance. The variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. The granting of the variance will preserve the spirit of the ordinance and remain in harmony with its general purpose and intent. In granting the variance, the public safety and welfare must be assured. And finally, in no case shall the granting of the variance result in a change of use which not be prohibited in the zoning. In January 2023, the applicant requested a permit to erect a 7-foot, 4-inch tall fence, building permit number 23-0321. The applicant was informed that the proposed fence requires a variance per section 30-182A, Section A, Section 2 of the City of Titusville's Land Development Regulations. Subsequently, the applicant is requesting a variance to allow up to an additional of 16 inches of height above the maximum 6 feet per the code. The fence will be located along the perimeter of the property as illustrated in the applicant's narrative, which is provided in the attachments. The existing 4-foot tall chain fence will remain. The new fence, if approved, will be 4 inches to 12 inches in front of the existing chain link fence within the applicant's property. The proposed fence will be approximately 119 feet in length, and per section 30-182, the height and location requirements of the city's land development regulations, the maximum height of the fence or wall in any required side or rear yard setback shall be 6 feet, and the fence is proposed in the side and rear yard. So that is why the applicant is requesting this 16 inches. The applicant stated that due to changes of approximately 2 feet in elevation from the property line to the dwelling unit, a 6-foot fence would not provide adequate privacy and separation between the owner and neighboring properties. The applicant's stated purpose is to screen the adjacent properties. The proposed fence will have open ends built without any gates or other enclosures and provide accessibility to emergency services, utility companies, and etc. by utilizing wood-based pickets in all sections where the variance is requested. That information was provided to us by the applicant. The code sets parameters by which properties may be improved in order to maintain a certain level of uniformity. The regulations also help prevent obtrusive structures from impacting surrounding property values. Specifically, the regulations are intended to provide minimum standards for fences and walls. The intent is to allow fences and walls where appropriate for security or screening purposes. These regulations will increase public safety and security of personal property. A 7-foot, 4-inch tall fence could create an obtrusive structure at the rear of neighboring properties. And I'll go into staff's recommendation, and staff's recommendation this time was organized based off of the powers granted to the BA, but I won't repeat those. So the existing land has different elevations at the property line and where the existing structure is located. The neighbors to the south sit at a lower elevation. The topographical elevation change is not the result of the applicant. The granting of the variance may confer upon the applicant special privileges. In such, the fence may be obstructive to adjacent properties at the lower elevation. The intent of the ordinance is to provide minimum standards for fences and walls. The intent is to allow fences and walls where appropriate for security or screening purposes. These regulations will increase public safety and security of personal property. A 6-foot fence may not screen adjacent properties from view. The granting of the variance may not be the minimum variance that will be reasonable upon the use of the land. The granting of the variance may allow for above necessary screening of neighboring properties while also potentially creating an obstructive feature within the neighborhood. The granting of the variance should not result in changes to public safety and welfare, and the granting of the variance would not result in a change of use which would not be permitted in that zone. Since some of these are against the granting of the variance, staff recommends denial of the variance. Granting the variance request will confer upon the applicant special privileges, and such offense may be obstructive to adjacent properties at the lower elevation. Thank you.
Any questions to staff?
So this is not a complete 7, whatever inches above all the way around. It's just for certain locations along the line. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the applicant provided where the fence would be located in the narrative. And you can find that on page 24 of 37.
Okay, any other questions to staff?
Can you give me a length of the fence that actually requires the variance? There's a linear footage.
Oh,
that's going to be out of
119
compliance.
feet. 119 feet. The fence will run for approximately 119 feet.
And all, well, I think he's asking the part that, you said that not the entire fence would be out of compliance? That the entire fence would not be 14 inches above the 6 feet, right?
Correct.
But he was asking how much of the fence itself would be the 84 inches.
I don't know the answer to that, but the applicant is here tonight and could probably shed some light on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Our first card, please.
Inaki Emiliano?
Welcome, sir. Come on up to the podium, yeah. Please first state your name and your address.
Inaki Galek, 2485 Indian Hill Court here in Titusville.
Okay. What would you say your last name one more time, please?
Galek Amilano.
Amilano.
Galek Amilano.
Galek Alamano. Okay. Sir, what do you like to share with us?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'd like to provide a little bit of background of this request and explain what I'm trying to build and where. After this short background, I'll try to challenge some of the concerns or some of the points that the staff meeting presents. My explanations will try to substantiate the fact that the variance that I'm applying for, if approved, would provide the same level of privacy that a 6-foot fence would provide if all my neighbors on my property were at the same level. Okay? So the ask is not to provide an additional level of privacy, but to level out the fact that my property, in general, it sits about 5 foot higher than my neighbor's properties to the back side of the property. Not sure if I explained myself properly. So I bought the property about 1.5 years ago, okay? And the Indian Hill Court properties were built in the 60s, in the late 60s, and they were leveled on that street. So basically they built a 2.5 layer of concrete where to start building the properties. Now, in addition to that, the property itself, the finished grade sits in general over 2 feet higher than my neighbor's properties to the back and to the side. So basically, we're on an incline. We're on a slope, if you will. Now, this slopes curtails my rights to obtain the same privacy as if the properties were level. And this is why I'm requesting a variance. Now, as per your question, the variance is not requested throughout this fence that I'm planning on building. It's only requested for the sections where this difference in elevation is so pronounced that anywhere in the house or anywhere at grade at the perimeter of the house is significantly higher than my neighbor's property. So I don't get a 6 foot, what a 6 foot fence clearance of privacy would provide. So I'm not building this fence for security purposes. I'm not concerned with security. I'm only concerned with trying to protect my family's privacy, my own privacy, and my neighbor's privacy, to have some sort of a separation. Because my property's kitchen, floor room, main bedroom, and dining room, they all face this side of the property, where I face the steepest incline and the steepest difference in altitude from my property compared to my neighbor. And this is the reason of requesting this additional 16 inches of height in the fence. Now, like I said, if you read the staff report, their concern seems to be that this variance would provide me a special level of privacy, which and this is what I'm trying to challenge. It is not. So I based measurements based on grade. So basically, I've measured the slope. The slope at finished grade, it's about 3.5 degrees of slope. The slope inside the house, anywhere inside the house, would be even higher. But I based all these calculations based on finished grade, basically on my lawn. And based on that, and the distance from where I'm planning to build the fence, I've calculated what would be the additional height that I would need to come up with the difference due to the slope. And this is what I'm requesting on certain sections, those maximum of 16 inches, but then the fence would transition from those 16 inches down. Well, it would be leveled, at the side, but it will transition down to a regular 6-foot fence per code. So with that, I would like you to reconsider or to at least review my explanations and obviously to hear people against it, if any, and then to hopefully to ask any additional questions if you have any, and ultimately and respectfully, I respect you to accept my hardship in not being able to obtain this 6 feet height of privacy and approve the variance, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Don't sit down just yet. Hold on. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I do, the same question that I had for staff. And I think I found it in your description of your request, and that is the total length of the non-compliance, and it appears to be at least 69 feet, possibly even more.
There are 3 sections, so I'm requesting a variance on the first section. No, let me go back. Let's see.
For the request from the audience, it appears that 69 feet of fencing is what you're asking for, the extra 16-inch height, just reading from your report, not the staff report, but from your request.
Oh, from my request. Oh, I see. Yeah. So there's 8 plus 24 plus 69. That's the total. But on the 24, on the first 8 and first 21 feet, which is total 29, that's that section is at 16 inches extra, and then the 69 feet is transitions from 69 to 0. So basically, it transitions
Understand.
down.
Okay. One additional question. You bought your property 18 months ago. Has anything changed about the topography of your property or your adjacent neighbors?
No, sir.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? All right, Mr. Collect Alamano, thank you so much. You may sit down. Any other cards?
Devin Coons.
Sir, you may come on up. Please first state your name and address.
Certainly. My name is Devin Thomas Coons. I live at 2641 Driftwood Drive, Titusville, Florida.
And are you speaking in favor or against the variance request?
I'm speaking against the variance request.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you, board members, for taking the time here to listen to my concerns. I will get right to the point and only speak of objective facts that I was able to measure or speak of as of today, so current, nothing that may have occurred 3 months ago or 6 months ago, because I have photos that I've sent that document the first fence that he erected that failed. When it collapsed, that's exactly why I got the code inspector involved, because I had been fighting against this malconstructed fence for months. Finally, code inspector got involved, and that's when the new construction of the current fence that he's already begun erecting was put to stop. And that was, I guess the code inspector explained that a variance could be applied for. That doesn't take into account the 60 feet that's already been erected, and it is at 8 feet 4 inches when I measured it with the tape measure from the level ground that's common between the property line of his and mine. So it's not 16 inches above. It's all the entire structure is up, and so you can measure. It's in my photos that I've sent that show it's at 8 foot 4 inches. Not.
Let me stop you for a second. Are there other photos, or are they in this packet?
I have photos on my laptop, and I sent them to Kim's address just now. I'm happy to
just
send
now?
this.
Oh,
But I'm
oh.
happy to send this around. Yeah, no. Would you like the laptop while I speak?
I'll let you finish your presentation first, then perhaps we can make arrangements.
Okay. So first of all, I will say I have lived in Florida my whole life. I bought my house in Titusville almost 8 years ago, but I've been through every hurricane you can imagine. I lived in St. Augustine Beach with my family for years. I've also spent the last 15 years as a handyman, second to my work at Lockheed Martin as an engineer. I'm very familiar with putting up fences the right way. I also understand Titusville City Building Code and understand all the different pieces that are in place to make sure things are done to mitigate against high winds, high rainstorms, different elevation and slope, the fact that our topography does change because it's such a sandy soil. I do understand all of that. So some of the pictures you'll see are me going out with a ruler and showing that the posts that he's using to erect now this new fence, which again has already been concreted into the ground. Let me add, every post that he's asking to put up has already been set in concrete in the ground. The fence is up, okay? So that's the struggle that I'm fighting against. Now, he's only got half the panels up to cover the fence. These panels are bamboo pieces. They're unfinished bamboo, so they're raw. They have to be stained. They weren't stained. Just means they'll deteriorate in a number of years, but they're connected with just a simple wire that runs through them. And what he's done is he's taking a beam and you'll see this in the pictures, but he's erected this 2 feet off the ground. So he's essentially now made a sail where gusts are able to get under the fence. The chain link fence that was there was originally zip tied with all these panels. These panels, according to Home Depot website and the Vigoro manufacturer, they're 48 pounds each. He had a total of 14 panels. I could do the math for you, but already I'm telling you that's well over 600 pounds. You can't zip tie that to a chain link fence that was put up 50 years ago. The chain link fence has the structures to support itself for a 4.5 foot height, which it was. It never can take on 600 feet strapped to it, strapped to the side that sits up the slope, not down the slope. So you're also fighting gravity as well as eastern winds. This all collapsed into my yard in a calamity. Finally, after it was leaning for 2 months and I kept calling the code inspector, I was trying to get them to act, I don't know, somehow soon, it all collapsed. Had one of the children that go through my yard or one of the pets been out there, it would have been a serious situation. I don't care that I lost $300 worth of gardening. That entire strip, which is actually an easement for the power lines that run between our two properties, that whole area is kind of meant to not be difficult to get to because they come to cut for the power lines. The other neighbors have a berm. That's what I've been trying to grow over the last 3 years. It was doing very well until his fence collapsed on it and crushed 3/4 of all the berm that I had been growing for the last 3 years. Lots of native plants, lots of large brush bushes, things that are all proper for putting along property lines. When he went to erect this new fence a couple months ago, he's just left the broken chain link. You can look at all the supports, every 8 feet of the chain link, not one of them is connected into the ground anymore. These are completely sheared when it collapsed a couple months ago. So by putting the new fence in front of it, he's now gotten rid of the problem from his side, but now I have not only a broken fence that can still fall, the chain link, but now I've got this 8 foot 4 inch sail of these bamboo stakes that Vigoro site says are not meant to be used as a permanent fencing option either. It's meant as a decorative option to go in the front of a structured fence. So if you had a nice privacy fence panels with 5-inch posts set in the ground, proper, 3 feet down into the ground with their concrete, you would put these panels in front of that to make the aesthetic of your backyard more appealing than maybe just a privacy fence. These are in no way meant to be a structure to support or be made the fence itself. It's a decorative facade to put on the fence. All of that in addition to the fact that his house sits a couple feet above mine, which in my yard, you'd have to be much taller than I to then be able to see over the fence and somehow into his yard. It's not possible. However, because of the slope, he can stand in most places of his yard and see into my yard. That's not my complaint here. So the point of privacy, specifically from my side of the yard, is it doesn't make a lot of sense. I can't see into any parts of his yard or his house for that matter. So that part doesn't matter so much to me. I am not necessarily against the variance if a fence is erected in the right way for 8+ feet. But you cannot use 1-inch steel temporary fence beams, the kind that you find at Home Depot or Lowe's, and concrete those into 3-inch concrete holes. I can push those over with my hand. So the next storm we get, this is all going to come over. The problem is it's already half erect. The whole structure's up and half the panels are up. So I'm already now fighting against something that's been put up that doesn't follow building code, doesn't follow any of the wind code. It is not been done by someone with fencing expertise. And it's already been attempted and collapsed. So if we're going to put up a right privacy fence that wants to go over 6 feet, it has to be one of the types of privacy fences that can support that type of slope, wind, weather, as well as the materials that are used. I'm going to have a deteriorated fence that's now on top of an already broken fence in about a year or two. So I don't know how. I thought going to the code inspector with all of this information the first time was how to solve this, and it's not. Now I'm being told that this fence is going to potentially have this variance, but again, the fence is up. It's not 7'6", it's 8'4". It is well beyond 69 feet in length. I don't know where that number comes from, but the perimeter alone is over 100, and it does extend into the front-facing yard. So it's not just on my property line. The gentleman who also lives behind me, who I've known for years, he's an elder man who doesn't come out of his home much. I don't know that he knows that when the fence collapsed by my neighbor's fault a couple months ago, his fence on the corner was completely pulled and detached. So there is no working fence on my neighbor's yard anymore that prior to the current owner purchasing that home was never an issue for years. So there's multiple things that, if this wants to be done, should at least be addressed and fixed prior to just trying to maybe put it behind another fence. Again, my biggest concern is the safety of this fence, that this variance, if granted, is absolutely going to go against better welfare or better, I forget if there was a clause or statement towards the end of what you spoke of that said it shouldn't, or it shouldn't do any harm, or I don't know what the phrase was, if you can find it, but that's putting up a fence like this that's not at all following any type of fence building standard. You can find any fence builder you want and ask them if these types of materials are what you'd use around here. There are 14 privacy fences on my block. 5 have the 6-foot vinyl white privacy. The others are your typical shadow box privacy. The surrounding 2 streets that I went to in Titusville, or in my neighborhood, I tried to look at, I counted 32 different houses. Not one has this type of bamboo temporary fence structure. So it doesn't even fit with anything anybody else is doing. There's 3 styles. You have the shadow box privacy, you've got the chain link fence, and you've got the white vinyl privacy. That's what everyone in Hickory Hill has. So there's a lot of points, I think, that were made that need to be considered for this exact fence that, again, is 75% erected at this point.
All right, thank you, sir. Don't go anywhere. Any questions for this witness, Mr. Coons, yes?
Yes.
Any questions for the witness? No. Ms. Kim, did you receive the emailed pictures?
Oh, I don't even know if I
Again, I'd
can
be
get them
happy
on
to
this
just
computer.
hand you this if you want it.
Counsel, is it appropriate for us to look at the images?
Yes, you may show them to the board, but you first have to show them to the applicant.
Absolutely. Yeah. This first picture is a few months ago when we first put up the initial fence. This is 2 months ago when it collapsed into my yard. This is all the destruction from it. This is now the new frame that you have up exactly as it was as of this afternoon. These are the panels you've already begun to put up. This is the broken fence to the neighbor that no longer works now that I've had to kind of temporarily. Here's more of the fencing panels you've already constructed. This is the comment. Yeah, you'll be able to.
So, yeah, Mr. Glick, Amilo. I'm sorry, one more time, your last name? Gallic. Sir, you will have an opportunity to offer a rebuttal after we hear from Mr. Coons and see his images.
This is a ruler explaining the hole for the post and the concrete that's there to support it. This is again the current fence as it is with the broken fence behind it. These are the, I guess, the attachments that are used under tension to connect the beams. I don't know how to explain this picture, but it speaks about the work. Here it is again. This is exactly the yard today, right?
So I'm gonna, no discussion. If you've showed him all the pictures that you wish to show us, then you may approach, starting at that end.
And Mr. Coons, if you could
So-
hand your laptop up and then speak from the podium.
Go ahead, yeah.
Some photos are taken in portrait mode and some are in landscape. So if the picture skews one way or the other, just turn the tablet 90 degrees. You may have to slide all the way back to the beginning. I've now put it at the end. But what you're seeing in some of the pictures is the structure itself that's up. Some of the real close-ups are me trying to show the brackets that are used. They're not fencing brackets. I really don't know kind of what they are. They do work by tension, but the bamboo panels that are up off the ground, that's what's currently there. The very first picture that has the bamboo against the ground, that's from months ago when it was very first erected. And then if you see the bamboo fence that's completely collapsed to the left, that was from the storm a couple months ago that was a result of the fence leaning for the 2 months. That was the 2 months that I tried to get code inspector involved because I felt that it was now a safety concern, a risk, which it was. I think there's even a picture that shows the current chain link fence being supported by just a beam and a block in the ground because, again, all the individual chain link fence support posts have all been I realized when swiping through the photos, I do not have one with the measuring tape showing the 8'4", but I can easily email that to you when I get home. That's,
Okay, okay, stand by.
okay.
You can keep going.
I just want to caution the board that if you're making any comments, just to speak into the microphone, please.
Yeah.
That's okay.
My comment was specifically, there are issues here for code enforcement to pursue, and the construction of the fence is actually under the purview of the building department, and our issue is specifically the variance in the height of the fence. That's actually all we can address here.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
And I am the assistant city attorney. I was going to chime in that the board is not allowed to grant a variance regarding the type of materials because that has not been submitted as part of the request. The request is only about the height of the variance, and so that is all they are permitted to decide on. And I personally will look into the code enforcement end of that matter, and the permit that has not been issued would also delineate the building materials and the construction and require a final inspection. And so that's all building permit requirements separate from what this board does.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Mr.
you.
Coons, you may approach. Okay, all right, thank you, sir. Any more questions for this witness?
I have a question, if I may.
Okay,
Can a variance only be requested for something that has not been construction begun? In other words, is there a scenario where a variance would be applied for midway through a job versus?
I'm gonna let Ms. Farrell answer that.
Thank you. Yes, there have been scenarios in the past where someone has even been cited by code enforcement for doing something that violates the code, but a variance can be applied for and sometimes granted and sometimes denied. Every case is case specific. It depends on the circumstances of that particular property and the way that particular property is situated and not much else. And so it's up to this board to decide based on the evidence that was presented tonight, whether they think that the fence of the height of the fence should be 16 inches taller than the code allows. That's all they're looking at tonight.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And that's to enhance the privacy. That was his primary argument, is that it, right?
You are welcome to look through the application. We're gonna continue with our hearing now.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to mention that, that the variance asked for, it doesn't
We are aware
match
of
what
what is,
the,
we're aware of what has been requested, and that's what we're gonna decide on. So you are welcome
Okay.
to listen to the discussion that we're going to have.
okay,
Thank you for being a witness today.
thank you very much.
Next card.
That's the last one.
Okay. I will return it back to our board. Do we have any questions of staff?
A comment you made, Counselor, about, I've been on this board a long time, it's before you even. We've had a case in the past where discussion was about the type of material used to make a fence. And we were here a very long time that night talking about that.
Masonry, perhaps.
No, it was actually corrugated metal.
Okay. I do remember that.
Oh, okay, you remember that. It was,
But
that was a lot of our discussion. I don't remember.
The
height was
the application tonight was specifically about the height, and that was what was advertised. And so I can't go back in time to comment on what was advertised with that particular fence application. I just don't remember if they advertised for the material, but I would say that this board doesn't have the jurisdiction to decide on the material based on how it was advertised for this application.
Very well, thank you. Just clarification, appreciate it.
Any other questions to council or staff? Okay, no? Discussion amongst ourselves, if any. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gulek, did you want to offer rebuttal?
Yeah.
Approach before you speak, please.
Thanks. So I just wanted to mention that I'm following the process that the law enforcement officer recommended, okay? I went to building first. I asked them all the questions. They pointed me to a variance. And so I went to the planning department to ask, what was the process? What would I have to do to put up this fence? Okay, so I'm just following what they told me to do. I didn't go unilaterally and ask for a variance prior to building a fence. When I started repairing the damages from the hurricane, I was, and I mentioned, and I sent a long email to the building department. I was under the impression that I was rebuilding an existing fence. I'll tell you this story. This property, when I bought it, it had only the chain link fence, okay? But when I closed on the property, they usually give you a survey of the property. The survey that they give me was really old, okay? And this survey has a wood fence on certain sections of the property that is not on any of the approved fences that the city of Titusville has on records. So it was built prior, I don't know, back in the days, the previous owner, not the previous owner, the owner prior to the previous owner built it. But he must have filed that fence with county or somewhere else because it doesn't show up in city of Titusville. So I asked the question, I asked the building department, well, I thought I was rebuilding the wood fence by building an extra layer of post behind the existing chain link fence so that it would secure the whole structure. So I started doing that, and sure enough, the gentleman filed a complaint, and this is where I started the discussions with the with the code enforcement officer, Ms. May Wright. And I asked her, if you want me to put everything down, I'll put it down. I don't have a problem with that. I'll just wait for the variance, wait for the process, and then put it back up. But I told her, I've already worked on this post. Can I keep them until we find until the city decides if a variance proceeds or not, and if they issue a permit for the fence or not. So I followed what she mentioned and what she advised. She said, yes, you can keep it as is, which is your pictures that you've just seen are not because I wanted to keep that. I just said, well, let's keep it this way for a month and a half because this was the first meeting since I filed the variance application. So we've just been having to wait for like a month and a half or so. That's the reason. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on that rebuttal? No. Okay, thank you. All right. Any further discussion amongst ourselves or questions of staff? And looking back on our PDF page 10. Oh wait, did I go to the right page? 9. Starts on 9. We are only here to consider today whether a variance to the code is appropriate to allow a 7-foot, 4-inch fence, regardless of materials, on this particular property. Keeping that in mind, any discussion amongst ourselves?
I've looked at this very closely and do not see a hardship that can justify granting a variance. The property was as is when it was purchased. It hasn't changed since then. Everything else is superfluous.
Thank you, sir. Any other comment? And if there are no further comments at any point, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move to deny the variance request number 3, 2023, 2584 Indian Hill Court, requesting a 7-foot 4-inch tall fence in variance to section 30-182, based on the failure to find a hardship that justifies the request.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a second. Any further comment or discussion amongst our board? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes?
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Member Beckles,
Yes.
Member Van Deven,
Yes.
Member Wheelis.
Yes.
All right. That is yes across the board for the denial of the variance. So, Mr. Gellick, that is a denial of your variance. You are not permitted at the terms of your application to erect a fence that is 7 foot 4 inches. Okay, so I will let you get back to the building department and whatever else you are working on to see what other options you have. you're welcome to stay for the rest of the hearing or meeting. You are free to go. Mr. Coons, you're also welcome to stay or go. Okay. That concludes our new business. We do not have any present public. Miss Kim, any cards or discussion over there?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any reports from staff?
I just wanted to add, sorry, Rachel, I probably jumped ahead of her. If you haven't met Rachel Muller before, she's our new sustainability planner. I wanted to have a chance to introduce her. This is her first time before the BAA, so please welcome Rachel.
Hi, Rachel. Welcome aboard. All right.
I'm not so new anymore, and it's my second time in front of the BAA, but first time presenting a variance.
Welcome to the seasoned Rachel then. Perfect. All right.
Chairwoman, if I could add one more thing.
Yes.
The next BAA meeting has been moved due to a need for the city council chambers, and so the next meeting will be on Thursday, March 30th.
Thursday, March 30th. So if you all did not put that in your calendar already, please do so. Yes, Thursday, March 30th.
I have a conflict. I will not be here.
Okay, one down. Anybody else know for sure they cannot be here? Plus, Kim will send an email, so. Okay.
I have a procedural question. Going back to this case here, what if, okay, I know we voted to deny it, but what if no motion? Could it have just died with no motion? Chelsea?
No, you would have to make a
You
decision.
have to make a decision.
Yeah, we would sit here until somebody, and let you guys have discussion until a motion was had that could find a majority.
Okay.
And you need 4 to approve under your bylaws. You need 4 votes to approve a variance.
Got it.
So when we have only 4 members present, that's important that you have 5 people if possible, because you need 4 to pass an item.
Okay. Anything else from our board?
Yeah, are we down an alternate right now? I thought we were at full staff. I'm seeing it, the city's advertising that we have an opening. So we are down one alternate. Okay. So we have an opening available. Anybody wants to apply?
I did not know that. I thought we were also full. All right, so anyone interested in joining our Board of Adjustments and Appeals, let the city know. Anything else on the board, staff, council? No? Okay. All right, everyone, we are adjourning the meeting at 6:48 p.m. Thank you.